So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Honourable Navdeep Bains, Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development and the Minister responsible for FedEv Ontario. The Honourable Brad Duguid, Ontario Minister of Economic Development and Growth. Your Worship John Tory, Mayor of Toronto. Your Worship Bonnie Crombie, Mayor of Mississauga. Your Worship David Ryan, Mayor of Pickering. Durham Region Chair Roger Anderson. York Region Chair Wayne Emerson. Mark Cohan, Chair of the Board of Directors of Toronto Global, and Janet Ecker, Vice Chair of the Board of Directors of Toronto Global. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, friends, partners, and colleagues, welcome. My name is Toby Lennox. I'm Chief Executive Officer of Toronto Global, and I must say we are absolutely thrilled to have you all here, and thank you very much for taking time out of your schedules to join us, especially with the adjustment to the time yesterday. We couldn't be more pleased to have you here for this announcement, especially in a location that allows us to look out over the entire region of Toronto that Toronto Global is going to be serving. Now, in just a moment, I will be asking our guests to come up and say a few words about Toronto Global. Just note for the media, we will be having questions from the podium following this. We are all on a very tight schedule, and so we will be just moving things along as we can, but there will be some who may be available for questions afterwards. Now, without further delay, I would like to invite the Honourable Navdeep Bains, Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development, and Minister responsible for FedEv Ontario to the podium. Mr. Bains.
Thank you very much, Toby, for the introduction, and it's great to see you playing this leadership role. I had the privilege of working with you when you were with the GTAA, and it's great to see you continuing on to promote investment in this beautiful region. And good morning, everyone. I also want to thank all the partners who collaborated with us to make today's announcement happen. J'aimerais remercier également tous les partenaires qui ont collaboré avec nous pour que cette annonce soit possible. And that includes, of course, Minister Duguid, someone who we spent a lot of time with on the road representing Ontario and Canada, and it's great to see Raddy as well. Of course, Mayor Tory, we accommodated him this morning. It's very important to accommodate this mayor because he's really driving the economic agenda for Toronto, which is so critical for us. And my mayor, Bonnie Crombie, it's great to see all the mayors here as well, representing the regions and municipalities. And of course, I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge Mayor Ryan as well, and Roger Anderson, the chair of Durham Region. It really does speak to the collaborative effort that we have. And of course, my colleagues, Pam Demoff and Peter Fonseca. So this is truly collaboration of all of us working together to make sure that we drive this agenda. We really are here to celebrate a new partnership that will allow this region to compete with other world-class cities. As you all know, the Toronto region is a major contributor to Canada's economy, and make no mistake, it's very clear that the numbers speak for themselves. I'm an accountant, and I can tell you it generates 20% of Canada's gross domestic product, and that's a big deal for our country. And the region is home to 40% of the country's business headquarters. It's also home to many important sectors that drive the Canadian economy as well. They include life sciences and advanced manufacturing. In fact, in North America, we have the second largest cluster when it comes to ICT and life sciences. And of course, they include financial services as well, a field that, as an accountant, I have taught and worked in and understand very well. And it's great to see Janet here as well, who's been a driving force when it comes to promoting our financial sector. And many of these sectors have operations in my riding of Mississauga, Malton. And the mayor told me to say that. I just wanted to make that very clear. She actually walked in this morning and made changes to my speech. So I have a personal stake in this region's success. You know, for decades, the progress we made from innovations in these sectors gave middle-class families well-paying jobs, you know, and steadily rising incomes and better opportunities for our children. But now Canada stands at a defining moment. We are in a global innovation race, and we're competing. We're competing with countries around the world for the most talented people. And I can tell you right now, when I'm traveling abroad, everyone else is stepping up their game. Everyone else understands the importance of innovation. It's about the newest technologies and the fastest growing companies. That means we're also competing with other countries to attract global investments. And why? And Mark knows this really well, and that's why his leadership matters. Because jobs and prosperity will go to the countries that succeed in attracting growth capital needed to support both people, companies, technologies that drive innovation. And why does innovation matter? You know, my daughter's asking this morning, you're the Minister of Innovation. What does that, Dad? What does that mean? What does innovation mean? At the most basic level, innovation is about making things better in ways that benefit everyone. That's what innovation is fundamentally about. And innovations can create entirely new jobs, markets, and industries that never existed before. And that's the exciting promise of innovation. And they can give existing industries a new lease on life by making them more productive and efficient. So where innovation happens is where the best jobs are located. And our government is committed to this. We are committed to good quality Canadian jobs. In fact, when global companies look to invest, they aren't always looking for the lowest cost jurisdiction. And I can tell you this from my conversations with many companies. It's not about the lowest cost jurisdiction any longer. Instead, many companies seek the most innovative economies, the ones with the most creative and entrepreneurial people who can turn ideas into solutions. So it's no longer about the cheapest products. It really is about the smartest products, the smartest solutions. That's why companies look to the Toronto region. But Toronto is also competing with cities such as San Francisco, Singapore, Hong Kong to attract global investments. So again, this is a global race. In fact, the rate of global investment in Canada has only grown. It's only grown by 2% a year over the past decade. And meanwhile, other countries have seen their rates grow at least by 7 to 8%. So that just gives you an idea how we compare globally. So now is the time for Canada to sharpen its competitive edge. And our government is prepared to do our share. And we're establishing a hub called Invest in Canada to increase global investment. So we made this announcement in the fall economic update, the Minister of Finance did. And the hub will market Canada abroad and provide a single window client support targeted at high impact investors. And it will streamline existing efforts by Canadian cities and provinces to attract global investment. So it'll be coordinated with initiatives that we'll be talking about today. Because together, we can send the message that Canada is a great place to invest. And that's the key word here, together. We're going to work together, which leads us to why we're here today. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to announce that FedDev Ontario is investing $6 million in a new investment attraction agency called Toronto Global. This new agency will promote the Toronto region to international investors under one brand. Again, the Toronto brand is such a strong brand. It will enable professionals responsible for marketing, business intelligence, and investment brokering to identify potential investors. And it'll provide seamless, single window support to global companies looking to do business in this region. And attracting global investment to the Toronto region will create new jobs and generate new opportunities for companies of all sizes. And as a result of the partnership between Toronto Global and all levels of government, 500 full-time equivalent jobs are expected to be created by December of 2018. So congratulations to Toronto Global, to their entire team, and I look forward to seeing the opportunities that will emerge from this new agency. And now I've been told to do something very important because the announcement was critical, but I get the privilege of announcing and introducing my good friend Brad Duguid, the Ontario Minister of Economic Development and Growth, to come up to the podium to say a few words. And I can tell you right now, he truly has been a partner when it comes to economic development. We were in Vegas together at the Consumer Electronics Show. I just want to make that very, very clear. Yeah. At the Consumer Electronics Show, promoting 120 companies that were registered with their booths. That's our official story. We were in Windsor and Detroit together promoting our auto sector because, again, we have such vibrant sectors in this economy: life sciences, the auto sector, the aero sector, the financial services sector. And recently we made an announcement together in Alliston to secure 4,000 good quality jobs in the automotive sector with Honda. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my good friend and the Minister from Ontario, Brad
And Nav, you didn't have to tell him it was Vegas, for crying out loud. It's, well, neither one of us hit the slot machines, believe it or not, but I did make a $50 football bet that I lost. So that was it. So I came away $50 poorer, but we came away with a lot of good experiences. Nav, thank you for that, and thank you for your leadership at the federal level. We do have the opportunity of working extremely closely together. In fact, we see each other almost constantly, and it is so good to have a federal counterpart that really gets it, and in particular on the innovation side. So big round of applause, please, for Nav, the great leadership he provides. And I would love to mention all the names of all of the chairs and the mayors and the federal MPs that are here today, but I don't want to because I'm going to miss some of them. I do have to acknowledge Roger Anderson. It is so good to see you here today. You're looking fantastic. Thank you for being here. It's good to see you. And not all of us here probably know that it's that you're fighting a good fight, but we're proud of you. We're with you. And big round of applause for Roger. Thank you. And I am overjoyed to be here today with partners from all orders of government, leaders, courageous leaders that have brought us to this point here today. Today, Global Toronto, what that means is we are one strong, diverse, united, determined, professional voice to promote this great region. And that is something I think we can all be very, very proud of. Toronto Global brings us together today like never before, enabling us to build a stronger economic future for the GTA, for Ontario, and for Canada. And I've got to divert just a little bit from that because something Nav said to me kind of triggered it. As we observe some in our hemisphere choosing the fears of, play to the fears of diversity rather than the strength of diversity, I think it's important for us to send the signal each and every day that we're going the other direction. I believe that I think you get what I'm talking about. I believe we have a great opportunity to promote Toronto, Ontario, and Canada as a nation that welcomes and celebrates our diversity as a core part of our cultural values. That not only makes me proud, Nav, to be a Canadian, it gives us a distinct competitive advantage in a fiercely competitive, diverse global economy. So I see something certainly that Toronto Global will be able to use, and all of our levels of government will be able to use going forward as a way to attract talent and attract investment. Now, the creation of Toronto Global, which we're here today to launch, took some time and considerable effort. I want to thank all of you here, and those of our colleagues from the regions and cities in the GTA that weren't able to make it, for coming through for the benefit of our overall economic well-being. And that's exactly what you've done. This hasn't been easy. Our municipal representatives are fierce and proud defenders and champions of their cities and regions, as they should be. And I see Mayor Crombie smiling at me because she's one of the fiercest of them all. Today, though, we've overcome the temptation to think parochially. Today, we come together to build a stronger economic region. And Mayor Tory, it was probably about 5 years ago, before you were mayor of Toronto, when you were chair of Civic Action, that you and I were getting together on a regular basis to talk about how can we make our region stronger. And there are many others, Janet and others, many others involved. The Toronto Board of Trade was involved, and many of you here today in that discussion. And what we recognized is while we were doing well, we weren't at our best because we weren't speaking with one voice. We weren't involved in strategically placing ourselves forward internationally with that one voice. Mayor Tory, it's been a while. It's taken some time because it had to take some time. This was not an easy undertaking. And many people in this room had to think not so much of their personal self-interest, but of the interests of the region in making this happen. And none more so than Mayor Dave Ryan from Pickering, who was involved with the Greater Toronto Marketing Authority. And Dave, I want to thank you for putting the entire region first as well. Your leadership, along with Mayor Tory, frankly, is what helped bring us here today. So please, a big round of applause for these two very important leaders. And the fact is, Ontario's done reasonably well in this global economy. I mean, we're leading the G7 in growth this year, which is a fantastic place to be. We've recovered about 660,000 net new jobs since the global recession. We have the lowest unemployment rate we've had in about 8 years. So we're in a good position of strength, but we're also living and competing in an incredibly volatile and very competitive global economy, and we must be at our best. And that's so, so important. So today, as we launch Toronto Global, I say to the people of this province and the people of this region, today is an example of your political representatives at our very, very best. And I've had the honor with the mayors and many of you of taking this ride for some time now. I and our province were pleased to help out in the transition for the organizations to help us get to this point, and we provided some funding for that. And today, I'm delighted on behalf of Premier Kathleen Wynne and the Ontario government to announce that we will commit up to $7.5 million to Toronto Global through our new Ontario Investment Office. Like Toronto Global, our new Ontario Investment Office will provide a one-window concierge-like service to draw investments into our province. Toronto Global will provide the most powerful economic region in the country with the ability to work with our province, to work with our federal partners, to be at our best as we build an economy poised to compete and win in this fiercely competitive global economy. So I'm very proud to be with you here today, and I thank you and all of you for the partnership that you show here at this announcement this morning. And I think I've probably said enough about our Mayor of Toronto in my speaking notes, but I do want to say that it took courage and determination for our mayor and all of our municipal representatives here today to bring this together, because we're naturally, we get elected to represent our areas. I'm a former municipal politician. I've lived that. It is difficult to rise up above that and think regionally and think bigger. We're fortunate in Toronto to have a mayor that thinks big, that thinks globally, that has the courage to move forward in that basis. And on that note, I'd like to welcome our Mayor of Toronto, John Tory.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, ministers and colleagues. I would just say at the outset, first of all, that I think the fellow who's responsible for keeping taxes low and things well administered where my cottage is, Chair Wayne Emerson of York Region, was not introduced earlier, and so he should be. I like to keep tabs on him, so I'm always glad I can see him. And I want to just say on behalf of my friend, my long-standing friend, Roger Anderson, that it was said earlier on that this view here allows you to see the entire region. We will escort people to the east windows at the end of the press conference to make sure we can have a look at the Durham region. I am very, very happy to be here today because I think, as has been said, this is a very significant occasion. For me, as has been suggested, I've been working on this for 5 or 6 years, going back well before I was the mayor. And it came out of a Civic Action Summit where there was a recognition there on the part of the leaders from every walk of life from this region that if we work together on the attraction of jobs and investment, which of course underlies everything else that we want to do in the context of social programs and financing all of the different activities and investments of government, that we would do better than the arrangement that had us off, as it were, doing our own thing. And it doesn't mean we won't still be doing our own thing, but it means we'll be doing a lot more together. And I think this is a hugely positive development, as the ministers have said. How could we elevate ourselves on the world stage in the maximum way possible to tell the whole story of this great region and all that it has? And the answer came back that you do it together, and that you do it together so that you can go and tell the entire story. And I believe passionately in this city region. This is one of the great regions of the world in every respect, in terms of the existing economic base that we have here, the talent we have here, the embracing of diversity that Minister Duguid referred to, and the fact that is a fundamental part of our core values. We don't have to adopt that in reaction to anything else going on. It's always been the way that we've thought here. And so I don't think there's a better moment than right now for all of these governments. I was going to say 3, but there are 3 orders of government represented here, but a whole bunch of different governments, and that makes it even more of an achievement to get together. Because right now, Canada has the attention of the world. And we had the attention of the world a while ago because people recognize the fact we've got something different going here. We're telling a different narrative, a different story than is happening in many other places in the world where there is polarization and division. And we've found a way to embrace and to celebrate and to benefit from difference and to use that as a means, among other things, to attract investment and talented people to come to what is the economic engine of Canada. And so I think we have a formula for success. It's not perfect, but it's something that I think is going to stand the test of time. And as was mentioned by Minister Bains, it sets us apart from other people in the rest of the world. So we want the world to know exactly what's happening here, that it is a region that is home to talented, diverse people, and that it represents for anybody in the rest of the world an unparalleled opportunity to be successful. It's a place, as Minister Bains mentioned again, that is a place committed to innovation, where new jobs and new technologies are being created every day, where amazing growth is possible, where you have access to some of the biggest and best markets in the world. And I will say, for all the heat and steam coming out of some of the recent controversies, for all the unceasing love that I know in their hearts all the people in other municipalities have for Toronto, I know it's true. The fact is, regardless of how all that plays itself out and how it all manifests itself in the media and elsewhere, we are all in this together, and we all know that a rising tide lifts all boats. And that's what we're going to be working on together, is to have that rising tide lift all boats for the benefit of the people we all represent in this region. Nous serons beaucoup plus forts en travaillant ensemble comme une région pour raconter notre histoire et attirer des emplois et des investissements dans nos collectivités. Nous bénéficierons toutes de cette initiative. And so I want to just finish by thanking everybody involved, in particular because I started on this so early, and then Dave, Ryan, and I became partners in this through the Greater Toronto Marketing Alliance. It is something that required the absolute cooperation and the submerging of people's individual, municipal, and personal interests beneath a greater purpose. And people did that, and that's the only reason we're here today. And so I want to thank everybody involved, including some of the people that have come aboard more recently. Mark Cohan will provide great leadership. Toby Lennox is providing great leadership. And I will say, last but not least, the other two governments that we have to work with so closely. We are at an unprecedented time in this country as well, where I can tell you that under the leadership of Premier Kathleen Wynne and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and ministers like these, we are working well together to build transit, to get some progress on housing, and I think most important of all, because it fuels all the other progress, to attract jobs and investment so people can be employed in good jobs, and so that they can then support government initiatives through the payment of taxes. And so I want to thank those governments for coming aboard on this as well. We're going to make a great thing out of this Toronto Global, and it's going to produce a lot of good for this region. Thank you. And it is my pleasure, I almost forgot my duties, to introduce somebody who is, again, a most collegial partner. And again, you see things going on, and the media love to sort of have these things sort of end up in some kind of wrestling matches. But I can assure you, Bonnie Crombie, I work with extensively, as do our colleagues here, on a lot of different issues. And it is my pleasure to introduce a great leader of the city of Mississauga, Bonnie Crombie.
Well, thank you, John. Good morning, everyone. Bonjour. I am delighted to be here to represent the 905 funding partners and members of the Transition Board, Mississauga, Brampton, York, Durham, and Halton. We are branding ourselves as a region, as you have heard, because we see the benefits and the strengths of doing so, as other world-class centers have done, Paris region, London and partners, etc. But today's launch of Toronto Global was made possible because all levels of government came together to work together and are committed to unleashing the economic potential of the Toronto region's area municipalities. As a former member of Parliament, now as mayor of Canada's 6th largest city, I know that foreign direct investment cannot be the sole responsibility of the federal or the provincial governments, but that there are strength in numbers. And working with Toronto Global, municipalities will take on bigger leadership roles to build up the Toronto region as a world-class destination for job creators to invest in, to innovate in, and to remain ahead of the competition. Local government does not have the same power as our provincial and federal counterparts. We can't offer tax incentives or sign treaties. Like entrepreneurs, we have to think out of the box. So how do we do this? Well, my answer has been clear. We build on existing assets, strengthen professional networks, bring people together, and promote our communities. Toronto Global will extend our local reach into distant markets. The team of professionals from Toronto Global will work with municipal economic development staff to help international businesses understand domestic rules and regulations and apply for provincial and federal incentive programs. Toronto Global is an unprecedented partnership with the Toronto region's area municipalities and the provincial and federal governments. Toronto Global is a win for government, but also for industry. The federal and provincial governments cannot be expected to know the complete details about each Canadian city. Municipalities, we are the subject experts. We know how many acres have been zoned for commercial development and whether the land has the infrastructure in place to get investment flowing, shovels in the ground, and construction underway. And we plan to accommodate future growth, future populations, and employment growth. We know how many railways, highways, airports, and harbors there are, and where these economic gateways can take your business. Foreign direct investment will also add to the local tax base. This provides important funding that goes toward the quality public services that we all rely on, like accessible public transit, modern community centers, clean parks, and an inviting waterfront. The Toronto region is blessed, yes, with highly trained workforce, but also with diversity. Our cultural connections can lead to greater economic opportunities. A community's quality of life is essential to generating economic development. When a company chooses the Toronto region to do business, they're not just looking for a home for their new business, but also a new home for their employees. People want welcoming neighborhoods, leading schools, modern healthcare, places of worship, a place they can proudly call home, and this is Toronto Region. Toronto Global will help municipalities press ahead with international business attraction and investment efforts. With active and leading participation from local governments in Toronto Global, municipalities will generate new investment opportunities that will strengthen all our local economies. Thank you very much, and I'd now like to bring up our new chair. Welcome, Mark Cohan, please.
Thank you, Mayor Crombie. Welcome and bienvenue. Being a former sports executive, I am the cleanup hitter. So we're about to wrap this up shortly. It's my job to say the most important thing, and that is to say thank you. I want to first start by thanking our partners. I want to thank the federal government and Minister Bains. You talked about how important this is an initiative when you think about the region, which represents 20% of our country's GDP. If we can support this region, it fuels the economy for the whole country. So thank you for your support. I want to thank the Ontario government, and I want to thank Premier Kathleen Wynne for her early leadership and support, and for Minister Duguid for your persistence and stewardship in seeing this through. So thank you very much to the Ontario government and to our municipal leaders, many of them here today who have been around the table and played a key role in making this happen. To Mayor Tory and Mayor Crombie, to Mayor Ryan as well. Mayor Jeffries couldn't be here with us today. And to our chairs, to Chair Emerson and Chair Anderson and Chair Carr as well. It's quite interesting. You know, many people know me as a former commissioner of the CFL, and I equate this in many ways to thinking about a sports league. You know, and that's really what you've created here. You know, let's not kid ourselves. We heard from the mayor. Often you don't get along. Often you compete. But today, what you've done, you've come together. And this region will only be stronger and be able to attract FDI because of your joint leadership. And for that, I want to say thank you. Thank you for your leadership. What I'd like to do is three things today. I want to talk about why I got involved and tell my own personal story. I want to talk about why this is important from my perspective and from the perspective of Toronto Global. And I want to share with you what we plan on doing over the next 100 days. When I decided to wrap up my time as commissioner, I really want to take a moment to think about what is important to me and my family in terms of where I'm going to put my energies and my efforts. And when I got the call from Toronto Global, it really got me to think about my family, this country, this province, and this region, which means so much to me. You know, it's interesting, in 1968, my family moved from Chicago to Toronto. My father started a business here. Today, that business employs tens of thousands of Canadians. That business was always important to our family, but what he always said to us was the importance of giving back to your community. This city, this region, this province, this country has meant so much to the Cohons. And the attraction to become the new chair of Toronto Global really is my own desire to give back to the broader community. And I know my experience will make a difference. You know, after growing up here, I left in my early 20s to seek an international career. I lived in 4 different countries around the world, which I called home. I worked in maybe 30 different countries around the world and conducted businesses, you know, from Russia to Italy to Israel to South Africa to the UK to here in the North American continent, Mexico, in the United States, to Japan and Taiwan and the Philippines. It gave me a great perspective on the world. But I came back here about 14 years ago, and my wife and I decided to make Toronto our home again. And when I wrapped up my time as commissioner, many thought in the media, not this media, but the sports media, thought that I would go back to the States to seek a bigger job. And Suzanne and I, you know, we sat down in our house many times to think about opportunities for our family over many glasses of wine and debated a lot. And we always came back to this same place, and that this place, this Toronto region, there's nothing like it in the world. Our quality of life here is unsurpassed. We want to expose our young daughter to a place with diversity of culture, which is so important to young people today. It is a safe environment to live in, and the opportunities in front of us from a business perspective are like none other in the world. So when we decided to make our commitment to staying in this region, it was really about investing our time and resources in supporting Canadian institutions like this, which is so critical, and supporting young Canadian companies and helping them grow. The bottom line is, I personally believe in Canada, and I very much believe in this region. And that leads me to say, why is Toronto Global so important? You've heard from our political leadership, but I want to give it from the perspective of Toronto Global and what we will be focusing on. You know, you hear all these different stats. According to PwC and their City of Opportunity report, we're number 3 in the world in terms of cities and regions of opportunity. We've all read The Economist. We're constantly top 5 in the world in terms of a livable city and a livable region. Culturally, we have never been hipper or more cooler. You know, I'm chairman of the Juno Awards, and I see artists like the Drake and The Weeknd and Shawn Mendes. Should I say Justin Bieber? You know, putting Toronto and our region on the hip cultural map. But when it comes to foreign direct investment, we're number almost 20 in the world. And I think Toronto Global will change that. It is time for us, in many ways, to be un-Canadian, to put our modesty aside and to proudly tell the story of our region and show the world that this is one of the best places in the world to live and work. And that is why Toronto Global is so important. It's our opportunity to take advantage of our positive position in the world. You know, not just the Toronto region, but Canada's positive position in the world, to drive new businesses, to drive new investments in the region, most importantly, to drive opportunities for people who live here, and ultimately to make our economy stronger and more innovative, as Minister Bains had talked about. So Toby and the team and I have a lot of work over the next 100 days as we think about it. And I want to outline for you what we plan on focusing on. We will engage our leaders of the community to make sure that we put a brand new board of directors together that is reflective and represents several things that are important about this region: our regional diversity, our cultural diversity, and the diversity of our economy that will really be champions for moving Toronto Global forward. We will work with this brand new board of directors to make sure we put together a strategic plan that really focuses on specific opportunities to uncover new business for us, but also look at big aspirational ideas about what Toronto region can become on the global stage. Many of you are leaders of businesses or your communities here, and you all know that to be successful, you have to have a great team. Toby has a great team, and he's augmenting that team with more people. We're going to attract the best and the brightest to our organization who are entrepreneurial, who are passionate about this region, and can reflect that and communicate that on the world stage. Another important thing we will do, we will refine, I think, our aspirational story about the Toronto region that will resonate with business leaders around the world, that makes sense for them, for those business leaders who want to make Toronto, the Toronto region, their home, but also make it home for their families. And I think that's a very important thing that we will work on. And I will also say one more thing. We are going to methodically, and I will say enthusiastically, with a big smile on my face, engage corporate Canada. It's very important for us to engage the corporate leaders in this region and across this country who are out there conducting business around the world, to make them our ambassadors, to make sure that they are helping us uncover opportunities to bring investment into the Greater Toronto region. I think if we focus on these key areas, we're going to be successful. We're going to set Toronto Global on the right stage. In about 100 days, we're going to invite you all back into, I think, a bigger room. We're going to invite community leaders, business leaders, to unveil our brand new board of directors, and also to tell the story and to lay out for you what we plan on doing and rolling out Toronto Global over the next 100 days. I want to thank you for coming out today. I want to thank our elected leaders for giving me the opportunity to serve our community and serve the Greater Toronto region. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to all the speakers, certainly for your inspiring statements, for your commitment, for your shared vision of what the Toronto region is going to be able to do. So it's tremendously exciting to be here at this juncture, to know that we have your support, that we also have your investment, and it's a responsibility that we carry, and we understand the obligation that has been imposed upon us. It's something we take gladly because, quite frankly, selling the Toronto region is an incredibly exciting opportunity. To be given that kind of opportunity is really a dream. So thank you very much. Now, this concludes the formal part of today's launch. I'd like to thank you once again for being here. And we will now take questions, and I would just ask the speakers if you could come up. We'd like to take some questions from the media with respect to Toronto Global. There will be an opportunity, if you would like to scrum on other issues, to do so afterwards, but I would welcome any questions that you may have to any of the panel concerning Toronto Global.
I'm just wondering, I know it's called Toronto Global, but I'm just wondering why Kitchener Waterloo also Waterloo Toronto has so much potential, and Waterloo has the second best starting to go to
So thank you for that question. The question is really about the region of Waterloo, and I can tell you in my remarks, I highlighted that as well, is that overall we're branding Canada, and it's about Team Canada, and that's why we put forward an initiative called Invest in Canada Hub as well. And the objective of that is to work with Toronto Global, and to work with Waterloo, and to work with Montreal and Vancouver. You know, that is the objective, and if that's the message I can convey, it's a very important message, that we're working together. All orders of government, all levels of government, businesses, academia. That's actually one thing our Prime Minister takes pride in. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has made it very clear that we need to create a culture of collaboration. We don't have a monopoly on good ideas, and we need to work together and work with other jurisdictions. So Waterloo is very much part of our success story. So are other regions across the country. But this particular initiative really speaks to building the strengths that exists amongst the different aspects in this region, and to work together in a collaborative fashion to attract more investment.
Let me, I'm going to just add something to that, because it's a very good question, and one that we've actually considered. We've been fortunate that, well, Mayor Tory's reached out to Waterloo and Kitchener-Waterloo area, and there's now a lot more synergy between the two cities going on. It is a corridor. It is a corridor that is the exact same distance of San Jose to San Francisco. There's a lot of potential there, and you can't leave Ottawa out either, because Ottawa is got incredible innovation happening there. So All of that is taking place. There's incredible coordination. What this does, though, is it ensures that our Greater Toronto area now has that coordinated approach. And that'll provide us to partner even better with the Kitchener-Waterloo area. And who knows down the road? We have had some discussions, but who knows down the road what future shape this organization will take. But it's too soon to speculate on that now.
How much of this is being motivated by what Donald Trump is doing in the U.S.?
You know, I will answer that because I can speak to what I did in my remarks. We started talking about this 5 or 6 years ago because we knew that a rising tide lifts all boats, that if we worked together, we could put forward, as we've seen with cities that have done this very successfully, London, Miami, Chicago, Montreal, that we could do better working together. And so it long preceded any political events happening anywhere else in the world. And I would say this, it doesn't matter who the President of the United States is, or the President of France, or the President of Japan, or the Prime Minister of Japan. We are going to be better off telling our story together as a team and going out and attracting jobs and investment to this region. And so that was true yesterday, and it's true today, and it will be true tomorrow, and that's why we're doing this.
Put another way, how much does what's happening in the U.S. aid your own efforts?
Well, I mean, I'd be happy to respond to that because it's a question I'm almost getting every day. The fact is, look, we're in a position of strength. Ontario is leading the G7 in growth right now. We're leading the U.S. in growth. We're leading, United Kingdom, France, Germany, Japan, which is a position of strength. It's a good place to be. Are there risks involved in some of the discussions that are going to happen over the next number of months? Well, we'd be naive to think there's not risk. There's also opportunity. But as I've said many times, the signals that we're getting from the Trump administration to date have been positive in that they recognize there are millions of American jobs that depend on an unfettered border between Canada and the U.S., Ontario and Michigan, for instance. So it's in their enlightened self-interest to ensure that whatever comes of these discussions, that border remains unfettered and that the integration we have in our respective economies, which is very significant, continues.
Yeah. And just on that point, if I may, there are 35 states. Their number one customer is Canada. And there's an additional 13 states. Their top 3 customers is Canada. So we have very integrated economies. But if you take a step back, what we're really talking about today here is what is our driving force when it comes to our economic agenda. There's 2 schools of thoughts. There's definitely a school around protectionism, right, of becoming inward and looking at a model around that to really deal with the anxieties of the middle class. We have decided collectively that we're going to focus on being open to ideas, open to people, open to trade, and open to innovation. And I think that model is really going to allow Canada in this region to compete and attract more investments to create jobs. And it was said often by many of us here, and it really is a point of pride and strength, which is our diversity. This is the most multicultural region in the world. And if you talk about innovation, innovation is about good ideas. It can come from anywhere, anyone, and that's what we're promoting here. And we want to have an innovative economy that's focused on smart solutions, on smart outcomes, on smart products, and that will result in good quality jobs.
I want to take a shot at this too. Sir, if I can give you a specific example, we're a highly competitive place to do business, and we have a business-friendly environment. And I can give you an example. I went head-to-head with the state of New Jersey that was offering tax incentives and tax grants to a company. And because of the value proposition we offer as a region, I was able to attract them to Canada, then the GTA, and then obviously then thereby to Mississauga, and that was BioLab. So I'm very proud to announce that we can go head-to-head with any destination because of the value proposition, the business-friendly environment, the low tax regime, and the quality of life that we provide.
Toby,
Sure. Yeah, I was. You want Toby? You want to take a crack at it? I got some.
Well,
I'll follow up, Toby. I'll just say not yes.
the number of jobs is a target, but we fully feel confident that we're going to blow through that. We accept the challenge that constitutes. But I also think that as Minister Bains, Mr. Duguid, and the others have spoken about, this is about the quality of jobs that we're looking to bring that are going to bolster innovation, that are going to bolster key sectors that we have in the Toronto region. So remember that the Toronto region is a very mature and sophisticated market. So we have to be a lot smarter about the jobs we're going after. We have to do it with a professional eye towards attracting those companies that will really make a difference. So for us, and I think, Mark, you agree with me, this is about the quality of the impact that an organization like ours is going to have to the future. And we have to start now because that's exactly where our competitors are at. Sorry, if I could, the last question, and then we can take some questions afterwards on the floor.
Mr. Bains, on the infrastructure plans of the federal government, it seems that they've been quite slow to get shovels in the ground. Is that due to a lack of projects, or is there still kind of a bureaucratic process that's slowing down?
No, as you know, we committed to significant investments in infrastructure to stimulate growth. With low interest rates, we think now is the ideal time to partner with our provincial and municipal and regional leaders to make significant investments in infrastructure. For example, when it comes to strategic investment funds for universities and colleges, in Ontario, we worked with the province and committed to $1.9 billion to upgrade our academic institutions, all our universities and colleges. And all those projects are underway. So we're seeing the results of that in the short term. And of course, the long-term benefit is that we're creating a society by investing in infrastructure which allow our people to move more quickly from one end of the city to the other, but more importantly, to be more competitive going forward. So I'm confident that those funds will flow, and those projects are well on their way, and we'll see the growth and opportunities associated with those investments. Of course, we'll continue to find ways of how we can continue to move that aggressive infrastructure agenda forward. But it's a $180 billion commitment that we made at the federal level. There's been historic investments made by the province and the municipalities as well. And I think we all collectively understand the importance of infrastructure for short and long-term economic prosperity.
Can I just say a word about that? Because unusually, normally we're complaining about the other governments. And I'll say in this instance, I don't think I've ever seen in all the time I've been exposed to government a circumstance in which, properly done, that the federal government got the first phase of the transit money, for example, into the hands of municipalities, including Toronto, so that we're able to be in a position to order hundreds of new buses and so on. And it was done on a very specific basis where we know exactly where it's going. It's not some kind of mystical fund that is going to apply to things as yet unnamed. And that was all done in a relatively short period of time. And in just a few weeks from now, the second phase will be announced. So I just want to commend the governments, the federal and provincial governments, for the fact they have moved as quickly as they can. They were pressing us to have our lists in faster because they wanted to get people actually working and get things being delivered, buses and whatnot, in the case of transit. And I think they are to be commended for the speed with which they moved, but still being responsible when it came to the stewardship of the taxpayers' money. Good. Okay, thank you.
So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Just one brief, if I could have the mayors and chairs to join us, and Janet to join us up here for a photograph, just so that at least we can memorialize the occasion and to extend thanks to everyone who has contributed to this.
Why is he weighing jealous?